every pony, this is Calliope, and I just got back from the theater watching the My Little Pony movie. First My Little Pony movie in theaters since the 1980s, not counting the Equestria Girls movies. So this is a really big deal, and I was excited to see it. I'm not going to give any spoilers. This is just very quick, my first impressions. I took some notes in the theater, but this isn't scripted, so forgive me if I'm kind of rambling around a bit. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm looking over my notes right now. So, the first thing I kind of wanted to address was when I was looking up the theater times to see when the movie was playing, I noticed that it's actually rated PG. Now, I'd kind of taken it for granted that a My Little Pony movie was going to be G-rated. So I was kind of curious to see about what was in the movie to give it a PG rating. And having seen it, I kind of get it. It's nothing child inappropriate, but there are some scenes that are pretty intense. Two scenes in particular, which I won't say what they are, because spoilers. But yeah, there were a lot of little children in the theater. And there were two scenes when I heard kids near me getting very upset. One little kid was crying briefly, and another was telling their mom that they wanted to go home. So, yeah, there was some really intense stuff in there, but not in a bad children shouldn't be seeing this movie way. No, nothing like that. More just that there were stakes in the movie, and some of these kids in the theater were getting really caught up in it. Let's start off talking about the animation, because one of the most noticeable things that we saw as soon as the trailer was released was that they have a different animation style. And it was a little jarring at first. It was very jarring when I first saw the trailer. But for the most part, I think it works pretty well. The backgrounds are gorgeous. They look really beautiful. The animation was all smooth and flowing, very nice. I love the way they did the stained glass windows, the stained glass windows that they have in the main hall in Canterlot Castle. Those looked beautiful. I also like the way they animated the effect of the unicorns and alicorns' horns glowing when they used their magic. That looked really pretty. The only thing I really didn't like about the animation was the way they did the characters' faces. A lot of their I'm trying to think how to explain it. Their faces looked kind of childish. Like, these are mostly characters who are fully grown and function as adults in their society, and yet their faces and their expressions often looked really childish. And sometimes their faces were a little bit too fluid, rubbery. And one bit that was actually kind of really weird was the highlights in their eyes. If you look at a picture of the pony characters, they have highlights in their eyes, and it's usually white. And here, they were dark gray, which made the pony's eyes appear sort of dim. That was weird. We talked about animation. Let's talk music. For the most part, the music was okay. A lot of it felt like pop songs or generic kids' movie stuff. There wasn't much in the way of the show has some really memorable songs, and there was just not all that much in the movie that really stuck out as, ooh, yeah, this is a My Little Pony song, and I love the song so much. There were two songs that I did really like. There was a song called, hold on, I wrote it down, I swear, I'm looking through my notes right now. Okay, so there was one song I really liked called Time to Be Awesome, and one called Open Up Your Eyes. Those were both really good. I liked those. Aside from that, the songs were just kind of forgettable. I'm trying to think, and I walked out of the theater and I wasn't humming any of the melodies. It was sort of standard kids movie pop songs. They had Sia Pony. I think her name was, what was it? I don't remember her song, but I don't remember her name. Songbird something. Yeah, but Sia Pony, and she really served no purpose whatsoever. They were like, ooh, this famous pop pony's coming. You know, they could have just had Rah Rah or Sapphire Shores, but they had Sia Pony, and they made such a big deal that she was going to be there. And then she did nothing. There was no point in having her there except that she performed the big song at the finale of the movie. So, yeah. So long as we're starting to talk characters, one of the first things I noticed when the movie was starting that kind of threw me off was Twilight seemed to have a slight regression in her character. There was a lovely scene of her trying to meditate away her stress, which was a lot of fun, even though it was just a little brief thing. But she didn't really seem like her current iteration. She seemed more like how she was around seasons 4 and 5. Like she wasn't really used to being a princess yet, and she wasn't feeling certain or comfortable or acclimated in that role. And that was throwing me a little bit. But then I thought, when was this movie written? Because it's being released now in season 7, but the script could have been written earlier. And when I started thinking about that, it made some things make sense. So Twilight uses the title Princess of Friendship, which you didn't get until the end of season 4. And we have a brief cameo by Party Favor, who we met in the premiere of season 5. But Starlight Glimmer doesn't appear in the movie at all. I mean, I guess it's possible she might have been in a background somewhere and I missed her, but she wasn't actually a character in the movie at all. I think there was a brief shot of her in the closing credits, but that was just like still artwork of various characters. So, given Twilight's personality, the way she was written, and the fact that Starlight wasn't in it at all, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that the movie takes place during season 5. It definitely seems to fit in there better than season 7 now when it's being released. So, the storyline is pretty basic. The ponies are planning for a festival, because of course they are, and they are invaded by the forces of the Storm King, led by a unicorn with a broken horn, Tempest Shadow, who I'm sure you've all already seen in the promotional stuff. And it's up to Twilight and her friends to save the day. First off, let me say, Tempest Shadow is a fantastic villain. I loved her. I think it was Emily Blunt did the voice. She turned in a stellar voice performance. This character was cool and capable and menacing, and she very much commanded every scene she was in a really good way. So I was very happy with her as the villain. The problem was, she was not the main villain. She was working for the Storm King, and he was kind of lackluster. His lieutenant or captain or whatever she was really outshining him in pretty much every respect. Really feel like, in a sense, she should have been the main villain. Although, she worked well in the role she was in. What they needed to do was have a more intimidating final boss. She also had a weird little badger guy as a sidekick, and he was fine, really. The only problem with him was the voice. You look at this character, he looks like he ought to have a raspy, gravelly voice, but instead they gave him this sort of high-pitched nasal voice, and it just... The performance was fine. The sound of it just really didn't match the character. As I said, the story was pretty standard. You know, Equestria is being invaded. They need to save the day. The story was competent. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. There was some good and some bad in it. Kind of middle of the road overall. In many ways, it was very standard, hit a lot of the regular beats that you would expect an adventure story to hit. They have the invasion, they're trying to fight back, I'm not going to go through all of that. It was pretty well paced, you know, there weren't too many parts where it seemed either too rushed or too slow. But it was somewhat disjointed. It didn't really flow very well. There were a lot of parts, especially in the middle, in the second act, when it was like scene, followed by scene, followed by scene. It didn't feel like one long flowing experience, which probably brings us into the characters they introduced. I'm going to assume that you guys have seen the trailers and promotional stuff. So, you know that there's a cat person voiced by Taye Diggs. Taye Diggs is always lots of fun, so that was great. And I don't know if he was supposed to be a reference to the G1 character, Katrina, because they look like they might be the same species. If so, that would be fun. And there were bird-themed pirates who were fun. I liked them. The captain's name was Selena, which I don't know if that was supposed to be a reference to The Last Unicorn, because there's unicorns in this story, and in The Last Unicorn there's a bird creature, a harpy named Selena, so I don't know if that was an intentional reference or not. If it was, that would be fun. And, of course, there was the point that they were really driving home in all of the promotions and toy advertisements and everything was these, I'm not sure if I should call them sea ponies or not. When we first saw them, we kind of all assumed they were going to be sea ponies, but they're never actually referred to as sea ponies in the movie, and they don't really match up with sea ponies at all. And, okay, I'm rambling, but I was really looking forward to seeing sea ponies in G4, and it looked like we were finally going to do it, and I was disappointed. For one thing, as I said, it's still not clear if these actually are sea ponies or not, and I'm not going to go into any details there. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff I can't really be specific on because I'm trying to avoid spoilers. But I was not really satisfied with their story or how they were integrated or not very well integrated into the movie as a whole. They made such a big deal in the advertising, and it looked like they were going to have sea ponies, and it kind of feels like they were just trying to pander to the G1 fans who really wanted to see sea ponies, because, to be honest, this just really didn't work for me. And again, I can't be specific without giving spoilers, so let's just say I wasn't happy with their story, and they really, in a sense, they really didn't need to be here. They just didn't. They could have made this whole underwater theme really central to the movie, but it wasn't. It was like it was completely incidental, and it was really, really just felt like they wanted to have, I don't know, bath time toys to sell, so they needed to have this underwater bit that, for being played up so much in the trailers, doesn't even really need to exist at all. And I'm sad about that, because it was a really good opportunity, and they kind of wasted it. Speaking of G1 references, the movie as a whole was kind of a nice whole plot shout out to the original My Little Pony movie, with the pony's home being invaded and taken over by an evil force. And then a small group of the ponies go out on a journey to find this other group of characters that Hasbro wants to sell toys of, that they think can help them with the evil force who's invading. And then there's some other little similarities along the way too. So I kind of like that sort of whole plot reference to the original movie. And I think it felt like it worked well. There were a couple moments when the main six didn't shine in the best light. Couple points when Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie were just kind of really stupid for the sake of moving the plot along. It didn't really And I think they're more competent than that, especially in a disaster. And Twilight herself, like I said, I'm not sure how much of it was character progression and how much of it was needing to move the plot along, but she had an idiot ball moment herself, which seemed a bit out of character. However, I thought that the ending of the movie worked really well. I felt like the first act and the last act worked really well. It was mostly in the middle, where things weren't totally holding together, but the climax worked pretty well. There were a couple bits that felt like they were kind of missing people. Like we didn't have really any of the supporting cast present. We didn't have the Cutie Mark Crusaders or Applejack's family or any of the other minor characters that we are familiar with. You know, Shining Armor, no Discord, which I'm guessing they couldn't have him in there because, I mean, if you have Discord in the fight, he could have probably won things really easily. So we're just going to assume that he didn't get an invitation or he didn't feel like coming to the party and maybe he didn't know what was going on. A couple of really nice derpy cameos, which I appreciated. Let's see, I liked the Princess Skystar, the character that was voiced by Kristen Chenoweth. She was lots of fun. And yeah, I guess that's kind of all I have to say for first impressions. I'll probably have some more definitive and well-developed thoughts later on. I want to see it again, I guess, to really get my thoughts completely in order. But that's just my first impressions. And I definitely think it's worth seeing. It was definitely fun. I'm happy I saw it. Not perfect, not quite everything I wanted it to be, but worthwhile. Definitely a good movie overall. And I will talk with you guys later.